The race for South Carolina House District 112, which covers parts of Mount Pleasant, Sullivan's Island, and the Isle of Palms, is heating up between Republican candidate Joe Bustos and Democratic candidate Daniel Brownstein. I spoke exclusively with Daniel on Saturday. Today, Tuesday, I speak exclusively with Joe for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Joe Bustos, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Well, thank you very much, Quintin. I'm glad to see you. And you're looking good.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Obviously, the race for House District 112, which covers, parts of Mount Pleasant, Sullivan's Island, and Isle of Palms, is heating up between yourself and your Democratic opponent. What is it like to be Joe Bustos now as a Republican candidate for House District 112?
It couldn't be better. It's good. We've got a lot of support. I'm hearing from people all over the district, actually all over Mount Pleasant, and they're supporting me, and I just feel great about it. I really do.
What exactly are you hearing from constituents?
Well, I started out with education, conservation, and infrastructure as things that I was working on. But the biggest thing I'm hearing now is people want to feel safe in their homes. They want to feel safe on the street. They want to know when their children go to school. Just recently we've had, I think it's 3, a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old, maybe just 2.
Sure.
Young children who've been shot by stray bullets. And, it's happening across Charleston County. And it's concerning people. And, they're asking me, well, what are you taking to Columbia about this thing and us feeling safe?
Sure.
And I mean, we are, just blocks from where, King Street was vandalized, and it was just ugly, and merchants are still trying to recover, and that on top of the pandemic, it's just hard. It's just hard, and it's hard for people to get that off their minds. And I think that, if you look at the hierarchy of needs, you have to feel safe. If you don't feel safe, you can't work. If you don't feel safe, you don't want your children to go to school or your wife to go shopping or even to go to the office or go out at night. So it's a concern. It's important. And I think that's one that has percolated to the top of my list.
What comprehensive plan do you have in mind for public safety in your district?
Well, we have to support the police. We have to make certain that they're well-funded. Training is always something that you have to be looked at, because our police officers are interacting with our residents every day. Every day. They're interacting with tourists every day. And we want tourists, the residents, people in need, lost children, to feel like they want to go up to a police officer and ask for help. And then they have to feel that they're going to get the help they need in a safe and courteous way.
Courteous way. And, obviously, you talk about, public safety. What type of funding would you request for public safety in your district?
Well, of course, the county, Mount Pleasant, Sullivan's Isle of Palms, have their budgets. And if they had a shortfall and they felt they needed more money for public safety, I think they'd come to the state and ask. Now, I know in Mount Pleasant, just last year, the public, or not last year, the year before, the public wanted to feel safe, or feel that their children were safe in schools. And the elementary schools, they wanted school resource officers. And I know in Mount Pleasant, we dug around in the budget and we found money to have school resource officers in our elementary schools. I think we can do that. We can get money for law enforcement and for safety. And that also applies to fire departments. Sure. Our fire departments are very, very important, and EMS. Sure. I think we need to, there's that defund the police thing. That simply will not play. It can't stand. We have to feel safe in our homes, on the streets, in the stores, in a park.
Sure, absolutely.
The funding that it would take, obviously, is up to the county and the municipalities. But I would encourage them, if they feel they don't have sufficient means to hire and train good police officers, then they need to raise the flag on that. That's a moving target, but it's an important one.
What are the other moving targets when you think of this issue?
Of public safety?
Yes, sir.
Well, fire departments, we need to feel certain that if there's a fire in our home and businesses, that the equipment that shows up and the firemen who show up are trained, and they should be well compensated, because they should never be working but looking to leave. They should be able to focus on their duties and do that.
And let me ask you this, Joe. What exactly is the quality of life in House District 112?
Quality of life in District 112 is wonderful. Now, that's not to say that we don't have, in my mind, the most pressing needs are infrastructure and drainage in particular. I know in Mount Pleasant, we wrestled with that for years. And we found out that a fair amount, not a fair amount, but an amount of Mount Pleasant had inadequate drainage, failing drainage, and no drainage. And that was because the state built some of the streets and they didn't put drainage in. So parts of Mount Pleasant flood, and that's not a problem that is unique to Mount Pleasant. Isle of Palm, Sullivan's Island, both have the same thing. They're islands, and it's the low country.
Sure.
So we need to do those things that we have to try to mitigate that. One of the things that we did in Mount Pleasant was reduce the amount of impervious surface, driveways, pools, rooftops, to 40% per buildable lot. Well, a lot of the driveways now are gravel or they're pavers that the water can seep down through, and that's doing a little bit for us. Then the other thing are trees. And I can't tell you how important trees are. Trees drink a lot of water. They pull that water up into the tree, and it helps drainage. And I'm just shocked that Sullivan's Island would want to trim, cut, remove, or do anything to that maritime forest, because it's, it helps with drainage. And not only does it help with drainage, but when flooding comes, when waves, storms come, that's a natural buffer, and it will keep some of that water at bay. And then when it settles, the trees help drink that water right up into the trees and away from the ground. Isle of Palms has flooding. When it rains hard, their storm drain system works, but doesn't work that well. And one of the first things I'd like to do, and I have talked to the Speaker of the House about this, Mr. Lucas, is I want to try to get money for drainage in all 3 municipalities. And I've talked to the leadership in those municipalities, and they would welcome that. I know Mount Pleasant, just before I left office there on council, it was $10 million to get the old part of Mount Pleasant, a portion of the old part of Mount Pleasant, working well with drainage. This is not an inexpensive thing, but I think if I can get up there and I can work, the House knows that in the low country we have flooding problems, and that if we can keep this part of the state healthy, it'll be good, because we're home to a lot of the tourism. We have container ships coming in and out. A lot of that is the economic heartbeat of this state, right here through the low country.
Absolutely. How many drainages are failed in District 112, and how many are no drainages at all?
Well, in the state streets in Mount Pleasant, some Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palms,
Yeah.
the state built those streets. I don't have the exact number, but the state did not put storm drainage systems in. Consequently, when it rains real hard, we have a storm, all that water sheets down to the lowest spot on the street, and then those houses flood. We have houses that flood in the old part of Mount Pleasant. And then we have failing drainage because we know we have some metal drainage pipes. Well, you know, they rust out.
Yes,
they just and they collapse, and that's why I've gone to concrete, and then they can slip line some of those, and then we have to look at, because of the drainage. It's not just a thing of running the drainage off into the marshes or waterways or whatever. When Mount Pleasant floods, there are septic tanks, and those septic tanks overflow, and it goes into the marsh. And then that's when we see the shellfish season will close because of the septic tank overflow that goes into the marsh. So that's another infrastructure thing that we need to fix, and we need to work to get everyone on water and sewer.
And obviously, as you know, growth is always a big topic around the Low Country, and many people are moving to your district. How can you ensure growth with smart growth?
Well, here again, you know, in Mount Pleasant, we have permit allocation.
Right.
We have, and a lot of people don't like impact fees, but it ensures that the infrastructure is in before the houses or the buildings that go in. We also have to work with the school district to make certain that we have enough classrooms for the children that are moving into those houses. And then that we have the right mix of commercial to service the residents, and make certain that they don't have to drive 3 miles down the road to buy a loaf of bread, that they're somewhere close. And that saves traffic on the streets. And then also our fire departments and our police departments, we have to make sure that they're adequately funded and that they're on top of recruiting and training their officers and their firemen, and also public works folks, to keep up with this growth of infrastructure. You know, garbage trucks. You know, people don't think of that as infrastructure, but if you have a neighborhood come online and you don't have anyone there to pick up the trash and to move the debris away, it's a mess in a hurry. And all that goes into planning and executing a good plan to grow. You have to have those things in place. And I know in Mount Pleasant, and of course the islands are probably not as growing as quickly as Mount Pleasant does, but Mount Pleasant also had permit allocation, so they knew what rate that they would grow. And I know some people don't like that, but it's enabled the town to grow at a pace where they can provide services. And I think Mount Pleasant is one of the best towns in the state. And you couple that with Sullivan's Island and Isle of Palms, being able to go to the beach, go relax, walk in the water, and go see the sunset at the Pitt Street Bridge. All that comes together to make a wonderful community. And I'm very glad to say I had maybe just a little part in that. But a lot of people work very hard to make certain that it's a great community, and I think that's why we have people lined up waiting to get into our district, and why people say the district schools, Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palms, Mount Pleasant, that they like to be there so that their kids can attend our schools.
Now, you talk about obviously the district and the people that live in the district, and many people actually want a clean, transparent government.
Mm-hmm.
How transparent, ethical, and accountable will you be as a state representative?
Well, I have always said, from the first time I was on town council in 2000, that if you live, work, or recreate in Mount Pleasant, of course now I've modified that to district, my phone is always available, my door is always open. And I've actually had, a resident come to the door, knock on the door. And I went to the door and opened it, and he just looked at me. I said, "Won't you come in?" He looked at me and said, "No." He said, "I just wanted to see if you'd open the door." And I said, "Well, you're welcome to come in."
Yeah.
And he said, "No, no." And I think that I have always, people don't always like what I say, but I'll answer. I answer my emails, and I answer my phone calls, and that's the type of constituent service that I will take to Columbia. If you have a question, I'm going to get you an answer. And that's another thing that I spoke with the Speaker of the House, Mr. Lucas, and he said, if you need something, he said, we have staff here who will help you get an answer to any of your constituents' questions. So I feel very comfortable that from day one, if a constituent asks a question, and I have no problem saying I don't know, but I'll get you an answer.
And let me ask you this. These might be a couple of questions that you might not be able to answer.
Okay.
But what economic and educational opportunities do you hope you will bring to your district, District 112?
Well, and I will go back to what I feel is my philosophy about education. I'm a product of public education. I graduated from Moultrie High School, public school, and I went in the Army. And but I could read. And I went to officer candidate school. I got through my basic training and everything. I went to officer candidate school. The Army paid to have me get my undergraduate degree. I was a resident graduate of the Army's Commanding General Staff College, and then I received a master's degree from Central Michigan University. I did that with a good public school education. I could read. And I feel that I'm, I guess, a living example of if you apply yourself and you have a good education, public education, private education, whatever, but mine was public education, and I was successful. And I think that, as I said, if you apply yourself, you can be successful. Now, I think in the state of South Carolina, we set the bar too low. Minimally adequate is the standard for education in the state. I think when young people graduate from high school, they should be ready to go to college, ready to walk out and get a job, do an apprenticeship at a trade school, go to trade school or technical school. All those things. When they graduate from high school, I feel they should be classified as fully prepared. If we say minimally adequate, we're aiming too low. We should be aiming higher. And we should, it's always been my feeling that if you give people the mission, give them the wherewithal and the authority to do the mission, they'll get it done. And I think educating young people, I know when I was in school, the teachers in the classroom had the authority to discipline and make sure things happened. You didn't have to send them to the principal or send them here or send them there. And I think we need to make certain that our teachers understand that they have not only the wherewithal, but the authority to educate and set that bar high, and then it's up to the state to make sure that every teacher in the state has the wherewithal to educate young people to that fully qualified standard.
And I'm going to touch on education in a few later in the interview.
Sure.
Let me ask you this. What's your comprehensive plan for economic inclusion in your district, and how diverse is the economy in 112?
Well, or you mean the different types of businesses, or do you mean racial makeup? Or
that too. Yes, sir.
Well, I think, the diversity of businesses, we could use more, and I'm not talking about smokestack industry. We're talking about industry that is light and clean, and I think that's what we want in District 112. We want, a lot of commercial stores and things that pay higher taxes. We have plenty of tourism. We have hotels. We have restaurants. All those things, and they're in hard straits right now. Make no mistake, they are. So, for the area, for tourism, I think we're pretty well diversified. We need more light, clean industry, and we do have some economic development land in Mount Pleasant that we should be out recruiting and getting businesses to go there to provide jobs for District 112, so that people don't have to drive to Charleston, drive to North Charleston, all those places. They can earn a living right in Mount Pleasant. I know we worked on that on town council in Mount Pleasant. We weren't eminently successful, but we need to keep working on it, because we need to have those jobs so people can work in close by their homes, and that saves the traffic, and it stimulates business, and it stimulates, and people go to restaurants, people buy clothes, shop, they buy school supplies, and that will also help support the business taxes, the commercial taxes. Will help support the schools. So we still need to work on that, and that's going to be an ongoing thing, I believe. Tourism on Isle of Palms and Sullivan's Island, they're knocking it out of the box. I mean, they really are, and they're two great municipalities. And one thing I would like to see is hospitality tax and accommodations tax, which are people sleeping in hotels and motels. I don't know, do they even have motels?
Sometimes. I think somewhere in North Charleston.
Showing my age. But anyway, the hotels and the Airbnb, all those things that pay accommodations tax, all are wonderful restaurants that collect hospitality tax, and then coupled with the accommodations tax. I'd like to see the state loosen up a little bit on how the municipalities can use that money. At one point it was, you have to use it to try to attract more tourists to the area. I think, municipalities, should be able to use it for things like road repair, perhaps police, because road repair and police are essential to tourism. If you don't have good roads, people aren't going to come. If a place is considered unsafe because there aren't good police services or fire services, public services, people are not going to come. And, I think District 112 is a glowing example of how good it can be, but you have to work hard at it, and you have to insist that your local government provide the community with the things they need.
How many roads that is in 112 that actually need repair right now?
Oh, well, if you go, like I was talking about the infrastructure along state roads, and that needs it. Isle of Palms has state roads. They're going to need constant maintenance. Sullivan's Island has state roads, maintenance. Highway 41 is a good example. The county needs to work with Mount Pleasant and the residents to find a solution to that. And it's not going to be an easy one, but they're going to have to work to find a solution there.
What is the ideal solution right now?
Well, the Phillips community doesn't want that road made wider. The folks, over in Park West don't want it coming over and encroaching on them. There's going to have to be a compromise. Probably, if no one's happy, that might be a good compromise. I know when we built two things. When we built Hungry Neck Boulevard, that was a town project. The state didn't get involved. The federal government didn't get involved. The town built that boulevard. And Mayor Hallman, who I felt was a great businessman and an astute mayor, said, let's go pay those folks commercial prices right now. When we go down and make them an offer, let's don't haggle about price. This is their homes, and it's worth more to them than it is just a residential lot. So we went and we paid commercial prices, and there was only one fellow who asked for his property to be condemned. He said he wanted it to be a friendly condemnation, and I don't know if there was some tax advantage or what, but there was only one along Hungry Neck Boulevard that was done, and we paid them commercial prices. We worked inside. Mac Burdette, who was a great town administrator, worked and found the money. Took a little here out of different budgets, and we built that. And our transportation director was the engineer, and it was we planned it and built it as he went. So those are things that we need to do. We need to work on. Highway 41 is not going to be an easy thing to do, but it needs to be done. And I think folks in the Phillips community, I'll go back when I was growing up in Mount Pleasant. Well, it was actually just out in the county, just outside of Mount Pleasant. It was on Highway 17.
Yes.
And our house was close to, it was close to the lot. And they would come and buy, we want to take a little bit more of the front yard. Okay, and a little bit more. Well, it wound up that literally Highway 17 was about 25 feet away from our house, and it became uninhabitable. So I know that's when Dad in the 70s bought a house further down in Mount Pleasant, and he accepted that. He didn't like it, but he accepted. He said, they paid me fair price for the land, but this is the cost of progress. And he was a welder at the Navy Yard, and he was not a wealthy man, but he understood. He understood, and he understood that for Mount Pleasant to grow, that's what it was going to take. Like I said, they didn't take the land; they paid him for it, but he understood that was the price of progress.
How much tax revenue has District 112 lost in the past 2 years?
In the past, a year or so ago, it was going well. How much has been lost right now? And we won't really see the real losses until next year, when the revenue does not come in, when the taxes are lower, when at the end of the year, in the Mount Pleasant portion of District 112, the way it works is, at the end of the year, that revenue is what determines your business license fee, the gross amount. So this year they collected on last year's revenues. Next year they'll collect on this year's revenues. And this year's revenues, I think, are going to be down. How much? I don't know. But they will be down, and that's going to be the challenge for the local governments, and that's why we have home rule. And they are going to have to look at the revenue that's going to come in for their municipality and decide how they are going to divide the money, and they're also going to have to see where they're going to need to ask the state for help, or Mount Pleasant and the islands have always done a good job of providing top-notch services for their residents, and I think that they'll continue to do that as best they can. But it's going to be going into next year before we see the real how much gross revenue stores did not bring in, how much gross revenue restaurants did not bring in. Now we know, as we sit here, that the restaurants and the service workers, they're struggling right now. I mean, we know that, and the coronavirus money that is stuck up in Washington, 1.8 trillion, I think it is. They need to quit that. The president wants to get it out there, and I think well, we're not going to turn this policy partisan, but one part of the Senate filibustered that, okay. and so it's stuck. They need to get unstuck. They need to get that money down to the end users, and then they need to get businesses going. I know Kathy and I make it a point every week to go spend money in the local economy. We go out to eat. We buy things that we need. We go to mostly the small private businesses, because the larger chains have big organizations behind them that can help. But the small family-owned businesses, we need to go and shop. We need to eat out. We need to do those things as best we can to continue to stimulate the economy.
And with the COVID situation affecting the local economy so badly, do you know how much it has affected tax revenues in the district that they need for projects?
That I don't know. Like I said, it's going to be next year before we know the true impact of the money that was not made, the revenues that did not come in, and all those things. Like I said, this year, even, for instance, business license fees are based on last year's receipts. January 1 of 2021 is, and even that, the revenue, the amount that the businesses made just using business license fees, those fees aren't going to be due until June, so that people can get their business license that runs from 1 July to the following July. So, you have people who've made money or not made money, then they work through their taxes, and then they report to buy their business license fees, and it's going to be next year, and it may be the middle of next year before this becomes really, really apparent. Other than looking at the stores that are shuttered now, that have gone out of business. That's an instant picture. But the money that comes through for business license, taxes, and those type of things, it's going to be next year before we really see the impact. And I think it's going to be pretty great. And that's why I feel running for the House. I have experience. I've been in the district almost all my life, and I think that's understanding how government works, understanding the taxing system, all those things. I think that's why I'll be able to start producing and working and helping my district from day one.
And let me ask you this, testing versus infection. Do you know how many cases are there in your district, and how many are actually infection cases?
I don't know that.
Okay.
I don't know the numbers. I see the county numbers, I see the state numbers, and you could interpolate part of that, but I don't know. I don't know exact numbers.
Okay.
I can tell you, anecdotally,
sure,
that my daughter had coronavirus, and she stayed home. She said for 2 weeks. She said she had about 3 days of symptoms, and then she was fine. There are others that and that's the only one I personally know who's had it. But I think people are smart enough to know their own health, and they know when they need to stay home. They know when they need to call their employer and say, I don't think I need to go to work, or I need to go to the hospital. I need to go get tested. And they're trying to give or have more test kits or testing available, and I think that's important. And then people wearing masks, they know when they need to, or what their risk level is, and no one wants to get sick. No one wants something to happen to them. They're going to use their common sense.
And you talk about health, and I want to make a disclaimer. We're sitting at a distance.
Oh, yeah, I understand. But
yeah, he has his mask. I have my gate over here.
Yeah. And we talked about it before we sat down.
Right.
Yeah.
I told you, it's up to you. I don't want to make you do anything you don't want to do.
Absolutely right. And I think people do that.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And you talk about health. I want to talk to you about something that was a headline in the Post-Courier earlier this year before schools opened back up. But this is the headline from the Post-Courier. Many schools, South Carolina schools that is, may be dealing with a pandemic without a full-time nurse. School districts across the state are scrambling to hire nurses, a necessity as classrooms reopen in the pandemic, but they're competing against each other as well as hospitals that pay much more. Let me ask you this. How much should the state pay to be able to get these people, and how do you think the taxpayer should pay for this?
Well, obviously, the taxpayer, nothing that government does is the money is generated by other than taking it from the taxpayer, fees and different things. There's a system for funding the schools. When we start layering on things, your community has to look at how they want what they want to see in the community schools. I gave an example early on. The town of Mount Pleasant felt that it was important to have a school resource officer in elementary schools. We took it out of hide to hire those police officers, get them trained, get them on station. I think the same thing is going to apply if the local community says, we feel it's important to have nurses in schools, then we need to figure out a way to do it. Now, we also have to look at communities that aren't as fortunate as District 112, Mount Pleasant, Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palm. Right. We have to go to the mid-state where some of these poorer communities don't have the money that we can just, you want a school resource officer? Here, we have the money to do it. And in that, we have to make certain that the child in those schools, just as I said earlier, that should be fully prepared, not minimally adequate for education, but when they leave, they should be fully prepared. And that's where we need to level everything, making certain that those children have the same opportunity to get a good education. Because if they get good educations, they will bring that back to their communities. They'll have good workers. They'll have people that can work and make more money. They'll encourage, when they have a good school system and people working and it's safe, industries will come to that municipality. More people will move in. Or developers will say, we can develop there and people can work there, and the land is less expensive, so there's an opportunity here. And that's what we need to do. People need to see South Carolina as a place of opportunity, because we're safe, we take care of our children, we have great educational systems, and as I said, it's safe. And I think once we have that, and the money starts coming in, all those things will come up.
Now, obviously, you talked a lot about children in the last quote there, but let me ask you this. A lot of people say, hey, listen, we need more teachers paid, we need more teachers, we need to reduce the class sizes, and some people want to get rid of the standardized testing. If you were to get rid of the standardized testing, what should it be replaced with?
Here again, this is one, I'm not an educator. I'm not a school-trained educator. They have to have something to measure what they've learned and how well they've learned it. You know, and it's just like I said, we need to raise the bar. We don't need to push the bar down. We need to raise the bar, and then we need to have our educators get the children above that bar. Okay. And everything comes at a cost. You know, I've been around long enough to know that it comes at a cost. And you're not going to pay teachers or staff $5 and $10 an hour and get a good result. And I've always believed you get what you pay for. And I think that if we can raise the whole state's standards, we'll be there. Now, this isn't going to happen next year or when Joe Bustos goes to the State House. But if we can plant the seeds and we can start building momentum moving forward on education and safety and having, you know, wouldn't it be great if the entire state was like District 112? It would just be wonderful. But, you know, we have farms, we have manufacturing communities out there, and we've got to let them know they mean a lot to the state, and we have to continue to help them until we are at that level that the entire state pulls up with its children, with its jobs, with its pay, with its facilities, and it's possible in my mind. You know, if you don't have a goal, you'll never get there. But I think we need to have a goal. It was always thrilling to me in Mount Pleasant as every year we rolled out the goals. Do this, do that. The ability to grow from well, when I grew up in Mount Pleasant, we had about 3,000 people. Now we're 95,000, thereabouts, in Mount Pleasant. And it's a great town. Yes. And, you know, we're fortunate to have Isle of Palms and Sullivan's Island right next to us, where we can, you know, people can go recreate over there. Nothing better than going to the beach and spend some money and help them make that tourism money. And you know, I'll just say, it's got to be tough living right next door to a municipality with 95,000 people. It's got to be tough. You know, if we have a pain, they feel it in Sullivan's Island and Isle of Palms. When we have a blocked road on 526, we feel it on Coleman Boulevard, and that backs up into the islands. But that is part of the price you pay to live in such a good place.
Yeah. Well, Joe Bustos, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad to see you feeling better.
Thank you. Thank you so much.